My parents forced me to sell my grandfather's house, even set up the deal with a realtor without asking. So I got the house sold to the person they least expected and ended their control over my life. I'm 31, the oldest son, the person who keeps spare screws in a mint tin and knows which breaker is the mystery one. I work at a hospital. Password resets printers that only jam when surgeons are mad, the kind of emergencies that beep but don't bleed. My friends call me reliable. My parents call me reliable too, but in a way that sounds like a request. I live in my grandfather's house on Birch Lane. Small brick steep roof, a one-car garage that smells like oil and old baseballs. I moved in 2 years before he died because stairs got mean and dates started sliding off his brain like eggs off a non-stick pan. I set up a cot in the guest room, then a bed, then a routine. He left me the house in his will. Because you stayed, it said in his shaky pen. The lawyer read that line, and I had to step outside to breathe. Sophie is my sister, 26. She could sell sunlight back to the sky. She's pretty and convincing and always collecting plans. Open concept kitchens. She'll never cook in spa bathrooms, a yard for a dog she hasn't met. Every family gathering becomes a Sophie slideshow. Mom sigh in a happy way. Dad nods like he's signing a contract. I refill the ice and keep my face neutral. 3 Sundays ago, we did dinner at my parents' place. Same wooden table I did homework on. Same dent where Dad dropped a wrench in 2004. Roast chicken, green beans with too much garlic. Grocery store pie. I brought bread and a salad because that's my lane. Carbs and something green. Sophie breezed in late with foundation perfect as frosting. You won't believe this house, she said, unlocking her phone. Arched doorways, real oak floors, a pantry like Narnia. Mom touched her arm the way moms do when they've decided a thing is good. Tell your brother. I looked. Every photo looked like it wanted to be in a magazine. I said nice because that's the role I play when her dreams need encouragement. After pie, Mom did a little throat clear. That's the signal. Meeting time. Liam, she said soft. We've been talking about the house, my house, I said. Even though I knew the one Grandpa left you, Dad said, folding his hands like church. Birch Lane. It's a lot for one person, Mom said. The taxes, the yard. You work hard, but it's heavy. It's a free house, Sophie added, like explaining gravity. It's a blessing. You could do something generous with it. Dad leaned in. We think the smart move is to sell Birch Lane and use the equity for a down payment on Sophie's place. Rates are high. Timing is everything for the family. Mom said, pleased with the phrase. I felt my jaw go tight. Grandpa left it to me. He did, Mom said quickly. Because you took care of him. We appreciate that so much. But he'd wanted to help all of us. It's not sitting empty. I said I live there. Sophie tilted her head. Liam, stop being selfish. That's a free house. Either share it or you're not my son anymore. Mom blurted like the sentence jumped out of her mouth before she could catch it. Silence. Dad did an awkward laugh. No one is downing anyone, he said, cheerful in the way people get when things are breaking. We found a great realtor. She can come next Sunday at 2. She sells in your area. Top 1%. Mom smiled like a plan had been approved. Sunday at 2, she repeated. Okay. They talked about we, and I felt the words slide past me like a bus I didn't get on. I heard you, I said. Dad clapped once, relieved. Good man. I stacked plates. I wrapped the extra bread. I wiped the counter because when my pulse gets weird, cleaning is my inhaler. At the door, Mom hugged me hard and perfumed. Don't be dramatic, she whispered. Houses are just boxes. Outside, the porch light flickered twice. On my phone, a new message lit the family chat. Don't forget your house key Sunday so the realtor can measure windows. No question mark. No if just a plan. I drove home under street lights that looked like tired moons. I put my hand on Grandpa's workbench and felt all the little dents. I opened the drawer where I keep the wheel and read the line again. Because you stayed. Then I sat with my back against the fridge until the clock over the stove said midnight. I didn't move into Birch Lane for a shortcut to homeowner. I moved in because Grandpa started mixing up coffee and supper and calling me buddy in a small voice. Mom said, just a couple of weeks. Dad said, temporary. Temporary is a word families use when they mean forever. I made lists because lists make fear stand still. A whiteboard on the fridge, pills at 8 and 8 Pacific time on Tuesdays, trash on Friday, water the fuss called Dr. Patel about the cough. I hid the car keys on the top shelf after he tried to go to the hardware store at midnight. I learned the exact click the thermostat makes before it lies. I kept a notebook titled Birch Lane Care. Numbers call me. I wrote everything. Nights stacked up like plates. 217. Then more. Sometimes he called me from his room and asked if his brother was home. A brother who died in 1993. Sometimes he wanted to check the back door again. Sometimes he just needed to hear the sound of my feet. I learned to take 5-minute showers because 5 minutes is how long he could be alone without worrying the house would swallow him. Money wasn't the first problem, but it arrived like a cousin who never leaves. Property tax, $2,462 in June. $2,462 in December. Mom said we're strapped this year. Honey, we'll pay you back. We swear I paid it. I kept the receipts in a folder labeled Taxes Paid. The day she opened that drawer and saw the folder, she closed it soft and asked if I'd thought about repainting the cabinets. There was the roof patch after the storm. $740. The guy called me boss, which made me feel like I was wearing Dad's shoes. There was the water heater that died $1,080 same day. The gutters, $144 and one bruised shin. The security system, $39,992 a month, because Grandpa slept better when the little green light said armed. He stopped wandering as much when I stuck a bell on the back door. I started to sleep again by inches. Sophie showed up with succulents and an iPhone camera. When you sell, she'd say, tapping a load-bearing wall with her nails. You'll knock this down. You have to do open concept. She said, sell like the season would change without me. Mom came by with soup and notes like I was a babysitter. 2 minutes she wrote on masking tape like I couldn't read the lid. Dad fixed small things, tightened a hinge, changed a smoke detector battery, and then stood with his hands on his belt like a contractor proud. Before he left, he always said, call if you need anything, and then his phone would ring and he'd wave and go. Grandpa's hands got shakier. Mine did too. I learned to count breaths while waiting for test results. I learned the taste of panic at 3 a.m. and the relief of a nurse's calm voice. When Grandpa forgot my name for the first time, he said, you, and pointed at his heart. I said, yeah, and pointed at mine. We both laughed to keep from crying. He died in spring. The funeral was short because he hated when things went long. The will was simple. He left small things to people who showed up. He left the house to me because you stayed. The lawyer's office smelled like carpet and paper. Mom's mouth tightened on the word house. Dad shook my hand like we were men doing business. Sophie hugged me with a breathy congrats. The way people say good luck to someone heading into a storm. For a while, the house was a museum of his sounds. The percolator sputter, the squeak of the hall floor 2 boards from the bathroom. I thought about renting out a room. I thought about painting the cabinets white like Grandpa used to threaten, and never did. I did none of it. I watered the rosebush and sat on the back steps and didn't answer texts. Then the just thinking messages started. Mom just thinking prices won't be this high forever. Dad just thinking Sophie and Matt found a place. We should leverage Birch Lane now. Family asset. Sophie just thinking. We put your house in a family trust so it's protected. You can stay for a bit and then we transfer it to me later. Win-win. Protected from what I wanted to ask from me. When I didn't reply fast enough, Dad called. It doesn't make sense for you to rattle around alone in a 3-bedroom, son. I'm not rattling, I said. I'm living. Don't be difficult, he said gently, which is how he says, obey. They began treating Birch Lane like a project they'd already funded. Dad came to measure for the listing even though nothing was listed. Mom put blue painter's tape on the trim and said, buyers noticed the little things. Sophie brought her boyfriend to just visualize. I changed the locks. Mom cried on the porch and called me cruel. I let her in because the muscle memory of being good is strong. I made a list because lists are my religion when reality starts to blur. I wrote every payment I'd made since moving in. Taxes, $4,924. Water heater, $1,080. Roof, $740. Security system, $399 plus monthly. Furnace repair, $285. Gutters, $144. Electrician, $360 for the hallway short. Miscellaneous, $1,200, which is adult for money I didn't plan to spend. I stopped at $9,132 because the number made my chest feel tight and because I didn't want my love to look like an invoice. They ramped up. Mom texted the group chat family decision. We list in September, Realtor Sunday at 2, be decent. I looked at Be Decent and laughed once. Dad left a voicemail about the greater good, like we had a board and a mission statement. Sophie sent a voice note sweet and sharp. You know I'd do the same for you, which is funny because I already have a house. I called a lawyer because my feelings were starting to feel like quicksand. Ms. Beck wore square glasses and didn't look at me like a child. She read the will and the deed. The house is yours. She said, you don't have to show it. You don't have to list it. If anyone tries to show it without permission, call me. They'll say I'm selfish. I said, they will. She said, people use that word when your boundary benefits you and not them. I paid her. It felt like buying oxygen. That night I found a birthday card Aunt Lydia sent me 3 years ago. She's Grandpa's sister, older, banned from holidays after a fight that everyone calls boundaries. Now the card had $5 bills taped inside and 4 words in her spiky hand. You are not a mule. I put the card in my pocket and slept like a person with a plan I hadn't formed yet. I called Aunt Lydia the next morning. She picked up on the second ring. She still says my name like a password. Slow to be sure it's me. You good? She asked. No, I said. But I'm calling. We met at a diner off Route 7 with coffee that tastes like cardboard and pancakes that taste like childhood. She slid into the booth like someone who expects to be told to leave. No one told her to leave. We ordered eggs. I told her everything. I told Oad. She listened with her chin in her hands and didn't make her face into a show. When I finished, she said, your mother hates the feeling of no. Your father avoids hard rooms. Your sister thinks needs or wishes with better lighting. What do you want? No one had asked me that yet. I want quiet, I said. I want Birch Lane not to be a stage. I want to stop being the mule. Lydia smiled. Keep the house or sell it, but you decide. I can't sell it to them, I said. I can't sign papers and then drive by and see Sophie plus Matt painted on the mailbox over the number I learned to memorize when I was 10. Then don't, she said. Sell it to me. I looked at her. Are you serious? I've been saving, she said. I rent a 1-bedroom over a florist. It smells like lies and loneliness. I want a yard. I want a garage. I want to paint a kitchen whatever ridiculous color I want. I can pay cash. We'll do it clean. Fair price. No showings. Your mother already doesn't speak to me. Let her keep not speaking, but from farther away. My brain did 2 things at once. Imagine Mom's face and felt my shoulders drop by an inch. Is this petty? I asked. This isn't about revenge, she said. This is about closure. It's an off-ramp. We met Miss Beck the next morning. We looked at comps. Lydia named a number. I didn't have to squint at to see fairness. Miss Beck wrote as guests in big letters. Closing Thursday at 10 a.m. because sooner is kinder. We signed paperwork with black pens. The clerk stamped things. Stamps are small thunder. On Wednesday, I packed without making packing into a movie. Tools, photos, the percolator. Grandpa's pocket knife with a nicked handle. I left the couch that squeaked because Lydia liked the squeak. I left the curtains because Grandpa did. I found a Polaroid of my mom at 20, laughing in cutoffs on that same porch mouth wide head back. I put it in my wallet. It made me remember she used to be a person who wasn't a wall. Thursday morning, I signed the deed. Lydia signed. We hugged in the parking lot like people who crossed a river on stones other folks swore weren't there. She jingled the keys like a song. Sunday spaghetti, she said. It wasn't a question. Sunday at 1:55 p.m. I parked one house down and watched my parents' SUV pull in behind a white Lexus with a magnet on the door. Darlene, top 1%. Sophie got out in a sundress. Mom wore lipstick the shade of a stop sign. Dad had a folder. They marched up the walk like a parade. Darlene rang the bell. The porch light clicked on. The door opened. Lydia stood there in Grandpa's flannel, hair up, paint on her hands. A plant already lived on the hall table. A rug I'd never seen was down. The house looked like itself and like it belonged to someone again. Mom's face turned 3 colors. What is this? She whispered and shouted at the same time. Hello, Elaine, Lydia said, polite like knives. Dad blinked. You can't be here. I can, Lydia said and held up a paper like a magician. Deed recorded Thursday. My house. Darlene's smile died. Sophie made a noise like a tea kettle. You sold it to her, she yelled, staring past Lydia's shoulder because she'd spotted me by the oak, hands in pockets. I stepped forward because hiding is a habit I'm quitting. I sold it. I said it's done. Mom pointed at me, finger sharp. You did this to hurt us. No, I said I did this to end it. "You've turned your back on us," she said. The line she'd practiced. Old threat, new volume. The Polaroid was warm against my hip. My voice stayed level. "I'm sorry you feel that way." Dad went to his script. "After everything we've done, this feels unfair." He stacked words like bricks. Darlene floated backward down the steps like a raft leaving a sinking ship. Sophie said I needed that house, which is not how property works. Lydia didn't move. "I won't be yelled at in my home," she said. "You can call me later when the show is over." Mom's face cracked like paint. "You picked her over us. I picked me," I said. And quiet. "This isn't about revenge," I added, calm. "This is about closure." I walked to my car. Behind me, the porch light clicked off. That sound was a period. By the time I hit the end of the block, 13 missed calls. By the time I reached my apartment, 31. I put the phone face down and boiled pasta because hungry makes me say yes to things I hate. I ate standing up at the counter, staring at the blank spot where a clock should go. I checked the phone. 54 messages. "Mom, you blindsided us. Who sells without asking their family? Dad, we will contest. We have rights. Sophie, you've disappointed us. Lydia T. tomorrow. If you don't want to say no, Miss Beck, if they threaten legal action, send them to me. You acted within your rights. Do not engage." I replied to 2, to Lydia. "T. tomorrow. Thank you to Ms. Beck. Understood." Mom left a voicemail that sounded like a funeral with no service. "We loved you. We raised you. Houses are for families. Your grandfather would be ashamed." I stopped it halfway. I know the rest of the verses. Monday, the gossip machine warmed up. Cousin Jake. "Bro, what happened? Aunt Rita, your mother is devastated. Apologize." A neighbor sent a screenshot of Mom's Facebook post. "Some people value money over blood. Pray for us." Comments. "Kids these days. So sad. We're here for you." I closed the app and scrubbed the sink. Clean metal calms me. Dad emailed a document titled, "What We've Done for You." It listed things like braces, soccer practice, first laptop. Last line, "We invested in you. Time to invest in family." I didn't reply. I forwarded it to my therapist with the subject line, "Is this an invoice?" She wrote back, "It's bait. Don't take it." Sophie escalated with theater. She sent a Venmo request for $60,000 labeled house fund. "Do the right thing." I declined. She sent a question mark. "Then you're avoiding responsibility." Then called 37 times on Tuesday. I blocked her because my heart tried to leave my body each time her name lit the screen. Mom tried nostalgia. "Remember Disney? Remember your first bike? Remember watermelon on the porch?" Memory is a soft weapon. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb and went for a walk because the sun existed and I wanted proof I could feel it. They tried legal. Dad cornered me and Ms. Beck on a letter with words like undue influence and fraud. Miss Beck answered like a scalpel unfounded deed transferred for fair market value between competent adults. Further contact through counsel. Nothing after that except a one-liner. "We'll see." Which is what people say when they won't. Sophie posted a crying video in her car with a Bible verse in the caption. People sent it to me like it was news footage. I put my phone in a drawer and went to bed at 9:30 like a 70-year-old. Tuesday I had tea with Lydia in the Birch Lane kitchen. She'd hung a small clock and a photo of Grandpa holding a fish. The house felt relieved. We drank tea out of mugs that didn't match. She handed me my spare keys in a Ziploc. "You left these," she said. She also gave me the pocket knife I'd forgotten in the junk drawer. "You'll want this later," she said. "They're going to keep coming," I said. "Of course," she said. "They need your yes more than they need your help." "What do?" I asked. "Nothing heroic," she said. "Eat your toast. Say no without a paragraph. Block when your heart rate jumps. Go home when you need to. Build a life that isn't a reaction." I went home and set up an automatic transfer for the first of the month, $1,650. The exact number my parents used to float as my share for the greater good. Watching that money hop into my own savings felt like flipping a breaker back on. Wednesday, Mom appeared at the hospital cafeteria like a ghost. "We're talking," she said, already sitting. "I'm at work," I said. She leaned in. "You humiliated us. We brought a realtor to your house and you—" "It wasn't my house anymore." I said, "You owed us a chance." She said I owed Grandpa. I said I stayed. I paid. He left it to me. Her mouth pinched. "Don't throw that in my face. I'm laying on the table." I said, "You tried to list my home." I said no. "If you keep this up, don't expect us to treat you as family." She said, softer now, deadlier. If that's what you need to say today, I said. Steady. Okay. Her eyes went bright. Therapy has poisoned you. This isn't about revenge, I said. This is about closure and boundaries. She stood so fast the chair squeaked. Enjoy your little apartment. I will, I said. That night, Dad called from a block number family meeting. Come over. No, I said, don't be like this. No, I repeated. No paragraph. It felt like stepping onto a dock and finding it solid. They tried a new strategy. Other people. A cousin, I don't see messaged a sermon about honoring parents. A neighbor stopped me by the mailboxes. Your mother is heartbroken. I know, I said I can't fix it. Miss Beck emailed to say Dad called her office to propose a deal. She told him there was no deal. He told her I was ungrateful. She told him not to call again. Small good things happened. I wrote them down because my brain likes to count. Slept 7 hours, ran 2.5 meters without stopping, ate breakfast sitting down, answered 3 emails at work without rereading them 4 times, laughed at a video of a bulldog on a trampoline, didn't check my phone for an hour, texted a friend to see a movie and didn't cancel. Sophie slipped a note under my apartment door in careful loops. You ruined my future. I hope it was worth it. I didn't respond. I folded the note, then unfolded it, then put it in the trash. My hands shook for 5 minutes. Then they didn't. On the second Sunday at 2, the old realtor hour, I made pancakes with blueberries and listened to the game on the radio. The DJ told a story about a guy who built a boat in his garage over 2 years, 1 plank at a time. I flipped a pancake and thought, that's how this works. Board by board. Lydia texted me a photo of the oak with a ribbon around it that said, we stay. She wrote, neighbor brought lemon bars. 1, I wrote yes. She left a plate on my stoop with a post-it. Take 2. I took 3. The call started to slow, not stop. Stories like to run even after the credits, but slow enough that my body noticed. I moved the Polaroid of my mom to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a fish. It reminded me she was a girl once laughing on a porch before life taught her volume works. On Wednesday, Dad sent one more email. We can fix this if you sell the condo you bought with that cash and put it towards Sophie's house. I haven't bought a condo. I read the sentence twice and realized they don't know me. They know a version they made because it's tidy. I went for a run. It was ugly and good. When I got home, I made a list called Things That Are Mine. My paycheck, my time, my sleep, my Sundays, my yes, my no. On the third Sunday at 2, I didn't think about realtors. I stood in Lydia's kitchen, now her kitchen, while she stirred tomato sauce that stained the air red. She handed me a bowl and said, eat before you talk. I ate. We talked about nothing big. We didn't say my mother's name. The house hummed low and kind, the way it hums when the people inside aren't trying to break it. Here's the clean version. My grandfather left me a house because I stayed. My parents treated it like a family asset. They just hadn't moved yet. They said words like free house, selfish for the family, and either share it or you'd be cut off from the family. I said no. They brought a realtor. I sold it 2 days earlier to the only person who ever asked what I wanted. When they saw Aunt Lydia at the door, they screamed. Then they called me names, rewrote history, and waited for me to feel bad enough to undo a legal deed. This isn't about revenge. This is about closure. It's about moving the lock from the outside of my life to the inside and keeping the key in my pocket. It's about refusing to be a mule because someone says family louder than I say no. It's about not funding other people's plans with the one thing I earned by showing up. I can love my family and still refuse to hand them my house, my savings, my sleep, or my quiet. I can remember watermelon on the porch and still set a boundary at my front door. Love isn't alone. If they call tomorrow and say we're sorry, I'll listen. If they say, give us the next thing, I'll hang up. That's the plan. It fits in my wallet. I kept the percolator and the pocket knife. I taped, you are not a mule to the inside of my cabinet. I set my bank app to move money to my savings on the first of the month, the same way I used to move money to other people's ideas. I make pancakes on Sundays. I go to bed on time. I say no like a complete sentence. When doubt buzzes, I touch the Polaroid on my fridge and remember the version of my mother who laughed like a bell. Maybe we'll find each other again. Maybe we won't. My peace can't wait on maybe. I won't let anyone rename my boundaries selfish because they don't benefit. I won't let anyone turn love into paperwork with my signature missing. I won't open the door to people who arrive with a tape measure and a plan for my life. The oak tree on Birch Lane is still there. It isn't mine anymore. It doesn't need to be. It's rooted with someone who won't list it for showings on a Sunday. That click you heard earlier, the door shutting. Finally, I'm Liam. I stayed. I chose quiet over applause. I'm not a hero. I'm a man who moved the key to his own side of the lock. I'm going to be okay.